you're building something phenomenal in education. But one of the things that really stands out for me is that you're also an educationist at heart.
So I do a lot of career talks with students myself because that's what I love doing the most. At the end of the day, I'm a teacher from my heart.
What was young Manish thinking when you were moving up the ladder?
Uncle, you know me, like I'm always like this jeans shirt. Like I don't have any fancy ambitions in life. I want to do something of real impact.
You had no reason to be in Kenya. I mean, you have left your job, but you still chose to be in Kenya and in Africa and not come back to India and build something here.
At some point, you also feel like you owe it to the continent. So I didn't want to leave that place. Africa में गए पैसे कमाए वापस आ गए. कुछ तो करके जाना है वहाँ पर.
You want to build something in education, and then Craydel happened.
I love the idea of technology and how technology interventions can kind of democratize opportunities and kind of streamline things and remove biases and make everything objective.
What were the initial days like for you when you were building?
80% people end up in careers which have nothing to do with what they've studied.
Absolutely. So we all know the repercussions. I mean, there are horror stories of students being misled and they ending up in deep misery.
Every day I get up, I tell my wife that there are millions of students today that are going to be misguided today because we could not reach them. And I stay with that pain and I stay with that guilt.
Hi, welcome back. This is Ankur Bora, your host for Intersect by Masters Union podcast series. Today we have with us one of the leading, dynamic and inspiring educationist and entrepreneur, Mr. Manish Sardana from Craydel, Africa with us. Really excited to have you here with us, Manish.
Great to spend some more time with you, Ankur. I've known you for many years now, having worked with you both in Africa and talking to you in India. So it's a pleasure being here.
Super. Manish, I keep talking about this story, how I joined Masters Union. And in that story, it goes like this, that I was in Kenya, Nairobi, working for a company, Craydel, with Manish. And I was reached out by one of my friends who said, there's a big group here in India that is doing some phenomenal work in higher education, which was Masters Union. After your consulting stint, I joined Masters Union, which was 2 years back. So I started my consulting career in a way with you, with Craydel. And for 3 months that I was in Nairobi, I could sense the energy that is Craydel and the energy that is you that makes Craydel what it is today. This podcast series, and I also had the honor of hosting you at Intersect in February, where you were one of our keynote speakers. You were speaking about your work at Craydel and in Africa. My own experience in Africa, I mean, over the last 15 years, I've traveled to about 20 plus countries, talking about my institutions, I mean, be it APJ, Ashoka, Jindal, and now with Masters Union. I have been great supporter of whatever good work is being done in Africa. And that's why I came to you. But your own journey is inspiring. I mean, before, we connected on LinkedIn and we exchanged those messages, and I had an opportunity to go through your background. It's a stellar background. You're building something phenomenal in education. But one of the things that really stands out for me is that you're also an educationist at heart. And you have the interest of the students in your heart, the first thing. And then you also have, like a teacher, you want to groom others around you. And although you are an entrepreneur, you still look for everybody's interest in the room. It is not only your own selfish interest that you're looking for. So I am so happy that you were in Delhi, you're traveling in from Kenya, and you took out time for us. I want to start this conversation like we have a tradition here. We first want to know you before we talk about your work and your current company that you're building. So we start with Manish, young Manish. I know for a fact you were born and brought up in Delhi, but tell us more about your early school life, your family life. What was young Manish thinking when you were moving up the ladder in education, school, and then college, and then your post graduation?
Okay, that's going to take me 100 years ago. So typically born in a Delhi family, lower middle income group, both parents in government service. Didn't really have much, and And I think my mom, I remember long time ago, told me that she used to call me Manu. I mean, she calls me Manu. Manu, the only way for you to get out of poverty and the cycle is to take your education very seriously. And and then thankfully, like I come from a family where I think education has been taken very seriously. So like all my uncles are economists and they did well for themselves. A lot of my family members are teachers or they're doctors. Standard kind of Indian kind of family. And so I had a tough childhood growing up, and but we were very clear that the only way to get out of this whole vicious circle of poverty is to kind of just stand out and be the best at whatever you do. So there was a lot of emphasis, from my mom especially, to study hard and to not just study hard, but also in every extracurricular you have to, like we see this in India today also. It's not just good enough for you to be getting good grades, but you have to succeed in every single extracurricular you do. So that's what we did. I and my sister, both of us. Then I think I kind of got a hang of how to succeed academically. I think there's like a formula to it, and if you crack that formula, then you can get good marks. And so then what happened was a lot of kids in my kind of neighborhood and from my school and other networks, they said, can you also teach us? So I started teaching economics. And I started teaching economics when I was in year 11. Okay, to my own classmates, I used to take tuition classes.
Wow.
And then I started teaching at a tuition center also. I should teach math and economics there. And wo padhate, then I started making a lot of notes because I need to prepare notes to teach students. And eventually, at some point, those notes took a form of a book. So I authored an economics textbook for class 12 students. Eventually, became the youngest author, in the world to do that. But I think that was like it was always kind of very combined. I think, of course, there was being from a small kind of family, you wanted to kind of make some extra money on the side. But what was wonderful was that I was making that money teaching, which was something I was very passionate about. So then, kind of I started teaching for a long time, and then that kind of continued even when I went to do my undergrad in economics from Hansraj in Delhi University, where I eventually topped the university in the first year.
Wow.
And then graduated from Hansraj, and then I got this degree. And so I studied economics because, as I said earlier, all my uncles were economists and very successful. So I thought, if you want to be successful, you should study economics because that's the only way I've seen kind of real success happening. So yeah, so I did, and I at that time, I was very clear I want to be an entrepreneur. Like I loved being an entrepreneur. Every summer vacation when I was in school, I would pick up one business and I will make some money in summer vacations. So I love the idea of being an entrepreneur.
This is in school?
This is in school, yeah.
Wow.
Every summer vacation in school, I would do a small business.
Wonderful.
My first business was actually a library. So it was, a very Uber kind of a model. So I said, from the background we came, we didn't have access to a lot of comics and books. That was the only form of entertainment we had. There was no internet, there was no cable television that time.
Wow.
But you can only buy as many books and comics. So like, how do you buy more? How do you get access to more? So what I did was I created like a pool. So I said all of my friends had books and comic books. I said, I'm going to create a central pool of all of your comics and books. I'm going to rent it out to other people. And then whatever money comes out of it, we'll share that money. So a very shared economy kind of a model. So that was just one example of a kind of a business I would do. But every summer vacation, I will do one or the other business. And I think I love the idea of kind of solving problems and kind of finding a way to make money out of it. So yeah, so that kind of continued into my tuition. Kind of, I used to always teach tuitions, when I was in school and college. Then after that, so I finished my graduation, and then it was very clear that now what are you going to do? And I was very clear, I want to start a company. I want to start a business. And that was year 2000 when internet was just happening, Amazon was just happening, and I was like, the future of this world is going to be written by those who understand technology, because technology is going to shape the future. That was year 2000. And this, I don't know if you remember, the millennial happened, the Y2K bug happened. So like technology was kind of like the center stage of all our lives. And I was like, I'm an economist, I'm an academician, I want to be on the technology side of things. So I want to shift my career. But as it happens, in middle income kind of household, there is, of course, a lot of emphasis also in India to do your postgrad, because graduate is not enough. So my mom said, you do whatever you want to do, but first you need to do your postgrad. So she filled out, against my wishes, she filled out a form for Delhi School of Economics that time. And like, you have to do what you have to do. You have to respect your parents. So I sat for the exam. I cleared the exam. Delhi School of Economics is not a,
One of
it's
the
not an easy
top,
exam.
top,
Yeah,
top schools.
it's a very competitive exam. And I
Yeah.
remember our first day in Delhi School. Our dean came, and he said, "Where you sitting?" Mr. Chidambaram used to say, "Where you sitting?" Professor Manmohan Singh used to say, "Where?" Mr. Amartya Sen used to come and teach. So in that first induction class, you're made to feel that you are amongst the elite economists, And I think it was very clear to every single student there that once you graduate out of Delhi School, your future is set. Either you'll do your IAS or you go to your master's or a PhD in the US, or you'll probably work in a consulting firm. I mean, a future is set. Delhi School graduates find great opportunities after that. But inside me, there was like this deep desire to be on the technology side of things and be an entrepreneur. I was like, this is not what I want to do. Like, I don't want to be an academician, even though, like, I think education came naturally to me. I used to teach a lot, but I wanted to be, my heart was, I want to be an entrepreneur. So I remember that day very clearly. It was our first semester exam in Delhi School. And I had an answer paper in front of me. And like, I could fairly easily answer the questions. But like, I was very clear, this is not what I want to do with the rest of my life. So I took my empty answer sheet to the teacher and I said, I'm quitting economics. So I just quit on the spot, and the teacher was, as I call Bochakka, students were like, what the hell is going on here? Like, it's so hard to get, that year, I think about 7,500 students odd applied for Delhi School for only 75 seats. So it's not easy to get there.
So 75 seats थी और कितने applications?
7,500.
7,500.
Yeah. So you had a 1% odd chance of making it to Delhi School.
So tough to get into, and once you were there, you were.
So I was like, I don't care. This is not what I want to do with the rest of my life. So I quit Delhi School of Economics. My parents, you can imagine the anguish on their faces. But thankfully, they were supportive of me, and they was like, okay, fine, do whatever you want to do. So I started like my early foray into kind of e-commerce that time, because that was the only form of an internet technology business I learned. I learned how to make an HTML website myself, and I did a bunch of things. But it was way too early in time. In year 2000, we had dial-up connections. I don't know if you remember. There was nothing really. There was no delivery services. You had to deliver everything yourself. So we tried it for 1 year, but didn't work. So I had to close it down. So then, it was a big penny drop moment for me. So now that was the time my classmates were graduating out of Delhi School and they were getting into fancy places, and I'm nowhere in my life. And being kind of like academically kind of bright from my background, it was a huge shock for me. I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I was frozen. So for 1 year, I lied on my couch in the house and just watched TV. Like, I didn't do anything.
Okay.
I just went into deep depression. I cut myself off with all my friends, because a friend will call you and they'll ask you, what are you doing these days? I'm going here, I'm going there. And what am I doing? I'm doing nothing. I'm a failure. So it took me a really, really long time to get out of it. I was super depressed. I was like, I'm nowhere. I'm a nobody. Eventually pulled my strength. I did my MBA. And in MBA, after you do your MBA, you have this placements, college placements. So we had this companies that come to your office, and we have this concept of 0 day, right? It's the first day of 0 day placement. So the first company that came to the college was called FCB. It's an advertising, agency. It's called Draft FCB now. It used to be called FCB Ulka those days. And I had kind of like, I liked marketing, but I had no desire to get into advertising.
So just before we enter that, I want for our audience. So after you left Delhi School of Economics, you tried your hand at entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it didn't work.
It didn't work out for you, and then you were depressed.
For a year. Didn't do anything, yeah.
And then you joined an MBA college?
Yeah, then I joined an MBA college.
Okay, so
because the only way to get out of this whole hole that I've dug myself into is to just go back to education. And once you get a degree or an MBA degree, you probably get a start.
Now we are coming to the placement day at
so college. 0 day placement happened. FCB was an advertising agency. It's still an advertising agency. So they used to be called FCB Ulka those days. So they came for campus placements. And interestingly, one of the interviews in a panel was my junior from my Hansraj college days. It was such a soul-sucking experience. And these are like, my juniors I used to teach, and now they're interviewing me. But anyway, so and because it was the first company on campus, everyone applied for it, and like 150 students applied for that job, and they only had 2 placements. Unluckily, I got the job offer. And we had this rule that once you get a job offer,
Then you can't sit
then you
for
can't
hours.
sit for another. So like now what I'm left with, like I'm left with advertising now. It's not something I want to do, never something I thought about doing ever in my life.
Okay.
But now I'm in advertising. So I started with FCB and advertising. And and I enjoyed the journey. It was fun. I found my own kind of space, where I could do the kind of work I wanted to do. And I had spent 3 years in advertising between FCB and another company called
I think the
Publicis Group, where I also was kind of head of strategy planning for Hewlett Packard, and it was a good experience. It gave me good kind of corporate exposure and everything.
So यहाँ तक you were working as an employee for these organizations.
Yeah.
But
And then-
the entrepreneur in you was never
was dying,
yeah.
and then I was like, they can't do this. But even like entrepreneurship, I think is a spirit, right?
Mm.
And a spirit can manifest even in when you're working in a job.
Mm.
So even when I was working in an organization, I always thought this was my own company. How would I run it if it's my own company?
Yes.
I remember there was a time when there was like a big pitch for a big client, and my organization had we worked in a business page, everyone had worked together. But like last moment I thought like this is not the right pitch. We are just putting a topi over a client's head, but this doesn't really mean anything. So I changed the whole pitch and I delivered a pitch which was not aligned with what any one of my team members had done. And I got really fired for that in my office. But that was my spirit. Like I would do things on my own terms. I would always do things that I thought and believe were right.
So these are which years you were with?
So this was years, 2004 to 2007. Yeah, 2006, late 2006, yeah.
And then I think then you found.
Then I decided then as I said, the entrepreneur in me was dying. I was like, no, I don't want to do this. So then I was just waiting for the right opportunity. But I was very clear that if I'm going to be an entrepreneur, it has to be in a technology space. So then my other batchmate who got into the same, I told you that only 2 people got. Her husband was from IIT Delhi, and amongst with some other friends from IIT Delhi in Bombay, they were starting an education tech startup. So now I was like, yeah, this is my world. This is education and this is technology coming together. So I quit my advertising days and I joined a startup. I said, I don't understand technology, but I want to be part of that evolution. So in 2006 I joined this company called Viti. So Viti was essentially an online platform that was helping students prepare for competitive exams like JEE, IAS entrance exams, all of that. Really cool concept, great. Like something that, Byju's and an academy, started doing later. So we were doing this in 2006, where no one even heard of models like this. So I worked in that startup for 7 years and I did well for myself. And then eventually, we made some bad decisions as a startup and I think the company closed down, even though we raised a lot of funding. And I learned a lot of lessons on how to run like a proper kind of tech startup. There was a lot of learning for me. I really understood tech very well. So after that, 7 years.
For how many years?
So 7 years, yeah.
7
years. 2006 to 2012-ish. Yeah, and then I think, I'd worked really hard in the startup days, kind of like my family had to take a back seat because of my ambition. So after, I kind of sold off my stake in the company, I quit, I made a bit of money. Then I said, I'm going to pay attention to my family now. So my wife was just pregnant and, she was going to give birth to our first child. So I decided to take a back seat and support my wife, and she was starting her own business, so I had to support her. So did that for about a year or so. And after that, I got a call to work in WPP, which is at that time the world's largest marketing and advertising group. And they wanted to build expertise in technology and digital because they were a traditional advertising agency. So they called me because one of the guys who was working there used to work with me in my advertising days here. So it was very simple, Facebook chat, WhatsApp, nothing much. Do you want to come to Kenya? Sure. That's it. And in like 5 minutes I had an offer, and a week later I was in Kenya. In Africa, yeah.
And have you
headquartered in Kenya?
Have you been to Kenya before?
Never been to. Never left my country.
Never left your country.
Never left my country. It was the first time getting out of the country. And that too for work. So I went to WPP and I worked there eventually for 7 years.
And what were you doing at WPP?
So I was hired as the head of digital marketing and technology for WPP in Kenya, and then eventually I got promoted to becoming the MD for whole of Africa.
Wow.
So did okay for myself. But again, as you rightly said, once you're an entrepreneur, you're always an entrepreneur. It's very hard. So even within WPP, I started 2 different companies as part of the organization. It was not owned by me; it was owned by the organization. And both did really well commercially, and they were both in a technology space. So that kind of also gave me the confidence that I can also, because Africa was very new for me, that it gave me the confidence that I could build a tech startup ecosystem in Africa, make it commercially successful. And then COVID happened. And I was on a peak of my career. Like I was doing really well. Financially, I was doing very well. I had a great lifestyle. Um, I was traveling across the world. Like everything that you could, that we dreamt of as young people, that one day I will reach this part of my career and life will be
That was
great.
happening.
It was all happening. And then COVID happened, right? So COVID happened, and COVID did something very interesting. So like, of course, India was severely affected by COVID, and we had a family group, and every second, third day, we'll start hearing that this person passed away or that person passed away, and it did two things to me. One, it was that, and I had a COVID scare myself, and I survived. And I should have not survived. Like there was no reason, because it was not even that you're healthy or unhealthy. Anyone could have died. Like anyone was dying. It was not related to, anything. And I could have been one of them. And I survived. And I thought to myself that I've been given a second life. So that happened to me. And then I thought that, like, what is really the meaning of my life? I'm a Hindu, and in a Hindu mythology, they say that it takes like 84 million kind of births for you to get a human birth. And I was like, this is the only human birth that I'm ever going to get. And what am I doing with my life? Like, what's the impact? I mean, my legacy cannot be doing a marketing campaign for a telco or for a bank or for a Coca-Cola. Like this can't be my life. And the second thing that happened was that, when so many people started passing away, I noticed one thing that, we grieved for those we lost, but then our lives moved on. In 7 days, everyone's life moved on. Like you forget about it. Like people come, they go. I was like, I'm going to come, I'm going to go, like a blip, not be noticed. So I think that time I really started thinking about the meaning of life. I started thinking about, what is my place in this world and what is the impact I want to create. And it can't just be making money. It just can't be having a nice lifestyle. It has to be something more than that. So I decided to quit. At the peak of my career, I decided to quit. And when I quit, I was told that I was getting nominated to become the group CEO, which would mean that I will go to a completely new level. And we were a public listed company, so we get real shares, real value. And my boss really tried to hold me back. He threw a lot of money on my face, essentially. But I was very clear that, like, uncle, you know me, like I'm always like this, jeans shirt, like I don't have any fancy ambitions in life. I want to do something of real impact. So I quit. And when I quit, I had no idea what I'm going to do. And my thinking was that if I keep thinking about what I'm going to do, everyone has a business plan. Everyone has 10 business plans. सबके दिमाग में idea आते रहते हैं रोज. वो idea आते हैं चले जाते हैं. But the addiction of your monthly salary is so strong. And once you lose to a certain lifestyle, getting out of it, and your family is used to a certain lifestyle, you don't want to succumb everyone to any pain. So मैंने कहा जब तक कि मैं सोचता रहूँगा ना, जॉब नहीं छोड़ूंगा ना, तब तक कुछ नहीं कर पाऊंगा. Then I decided I'm going to leave my job. So I quit without any thought in my head of what I'm going to do.
Wow.
And then I was scared. It was like, what am I going to do? My kids have schools, I have a rent to pay, I have a life to manage. Then I went to Google and I said, give me top 10 ideas to starting a business in Africa. It was that. I had no idea what I'm going to do. I didn't even know where to start. So then my wife told me that, why don't you, go back to education? Education is something that you've done a lot of work in the past. You love technology. Why don't you do something in the education technology space? And you are looking for meaning and you're looking for impact, and you love teaching. You've taught kids all your life. You like mentoring people. So why don't you go in that space of education? It's like, yeah, that's great. So now what to do in education? So then, a lot of thoughts came and explored a lot for like 6 months. But I was just trying to figure out what to do in education. And then eventually I stumbled on this higher education space, which was kind of very interesting for me because I had kind of been in that journey where I studied something which I should have probably not studied. And I studied because of, parental biases. Yeah. And a lot of decisions across the world by students are made based on parental biases, societal biases, etc. And students don't really know what they want to do. So I said, okay, this is a good problem to solve. And then how do you select a university? There was no kind of transparency. There was nothing available to students in Africa. So I wanted to solve that problem, and that's how Craydel started. So Craydel was, came from the word cradle, where you put the child in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before we enter Craydel, So now you have left your job,
Yeah.
and you had no reason to be in Kenya. I mean, you have left your job, but you still chose to be in Kenya and in Africa and not come back to India and build something here. So what is the story there? Why did you fall in love with that place?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, I mean, anyone who spends more than a year in kind of Africa can tell you that it gets to you, and then you don't want to leave that place. Like, warm and hospitable people, uh, not exposed as much to what we are in India and rest of the world. Uh, like a real big problem to be solved there, and no one is really solving kind of complex problems in Africa. If you think India is complex problem to solve, Africa is 10 times more.
Yeah.
It's not easy to kind of build something and sustain, especially when you're an expat, you're an outsider there. Plus, kind of we loved the place there, and my family was well settled there. So, I mean, you don't want to come back from Africa, एक job करके पैसे कमा के, you come back to India, want to do something like, at some point you also feel like you owe it to the continent, like that has given you, like Africa gave me a lot, right? It was really the second innings of my career, and I learned a lot, and I grew a lot, and I earned a lot. So I didn't want to leave that place. कि Africa में गए पैसे कमाए वापस आ गए, कुछ तो करके जाना है वहाँ पर.
So I love this thing about you, that you chose to, because as I said, I've also traveled a lot for last 15 years in 20 countries across Africa, and I know it's a very complex. I mean, people talk about Africa like it's just
like it's one country.
And when I go to these conferences in the West, I say there is a huge difference. There are so many countries, I think 54 or 52 countries.
54 countries.
54 countries in Africa, and you go to Francophone Africa, you go to East Africa, you go to the
South Africa, Southern Africa,
the Anglo-Africa,
then North Africa
is a totally different ball game.
Yeah.
So I think not many people even understand what is Africa.
Yeah.
And coming from the university admissions and outreach space, I mean, a lot of those conversations that are happening on the global level lack substance, because you're right. I mean, not many people are looking at that continent because the continent needs more investments, more human development, and there are not many voices for the continent on the global level.
Yeah.
And then people are also, they're always talking about the India and the China story.
Yeah.
And the African story is at least 20 years back.
And that's interesting. Like African story is seen as one story. There is no one African story.
No one.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy, and that shows your character, that you wanted to give back to the place
100%.
that gave you so much. And again, going back to your own roots, coming from middle class family, and such nice parents, and who gave you the value of education and ethics and values. So now coming to Craydel, so now you have decided that you want to build something in Africa. It has to be, your lovely wife told you about education, and you went back and you want to build something in education, and then Craydel happened. And what were the initial days like for you when you were building? And I know from your experiences that you have said, you were always looking for technology, you were always building things in technology, and you wanted to do something in technology, but then career counseling, career guidance, your own lived experiences.
Yeah.
But then what led you to, come and say, pinpoint, okay, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, so as you can understand that the nature of the business evolves. So your initial idea and thought kind of evolves over a period of time.
So what were the early years of Craydel like? What
early
were you thinking?
years of Craydel were absolutely clueless. I will say the first 2 years, I had no idea what we were doing. I mean, we had an idea, we thought we'll do this, that didn't really work. Then we tried something else, didn't really work. But I think like fundamentally at the core of it, there was one clear problem that we wanted to solve. Essentially was to create a technology intervention that can kind of remove biases from the whole education process, because the education process is full of biases. From the subjects you select when you're in year 10, जैसे हमारा commerce, science and humanities होता था. I don't know what is the in CBSE today. It's still the same.
अभी नहीं, 2020 के बाद change हो रहा है. Next year से change हो रहा है, but
right now it is sciences, humanities and commerce. हमारे यहाँ पे क्या था, जब हमने select किया था, तो it was very simple. The brightest students will take science, the mediocre some will take commerce, and the students who are the worst of the worst, who don't good for nothing, they will take arts. So जब corridor में when you see a science student, you say, wow यार, and you see an art student like यार बेचारा, है ना? So it was so bad, so wrong. But अभी उस time पे we didn't understand that, right? So, in the education space, right from the time when you're selecting your subjects, commerce, science, the streams that you select, or you select what course you want to study in a university or what career is right career for you, that entire decision making process, subconsciously or consciously, is very much driven by the society around us and our parental biases and our uncle, auntie's biases, everyone deciding really for you. The child who's that young at that age, 16, 17 years old, he has no idea what is the best fit path for them. So first we said, yeah, okay, even if you were to do a counseling with a student, like what will you do? Typically the counseling process was, आपके पेरेंट्स क्या करते हैं, ठीक है, आपके मार्क्स बताओ कितने आए हैं सब्जेक्ट्स में. सो योर सब्जेक्ट्स एंड योर पेरेंट्स बैकग्राउंड विल टिपिकली डिसाइड व्हाट काइंड ऑफ और क्या मजा आता है करने में. तो ये दो तीन चीज़ों से यू विल टेल हिम कि यार कि क्या सब्जेक्ट चूज करने हैं और क्या यूनिवर्सिटी में कोर्स. सो यार कि दिस कैन नॉट बी द राइट प्रोसेस ऑफ डूइंग इट, राइट. And most of the time it was ki engineering, medicine, IIT, IIM, that combination. There were certain combinations which were looked well upon. So if you tell your parents, I want to be an interior designer, I want to be a fashion designer, or I want to be a DJ, like imagine how your parents are going to react to that, right? So we said, okay, how do we help the child figure out what's the right path for them? Like even with all of my experience and wisdom, like in a half an hour conversation, I cannot understand enough about the child to be able to find out what's right for them. So there has to be a better way for doing this. So yeah, so the first, when I did the research was like, we have to do a psychometric assessment first. And then I looked for a lot of psychometric assessments, across the world, like what is the best one. I tried all of them on my own self. And then I found out one assessment, then we kind of worked along with them to kind of improve it and to make it work for our context in Africa. And then we coupled with a lot of career resources on top of it. So the school career counseling process became a lot more scientific. 80% people end up in careers which have nothing to do with what they've studied.
Absolutely.
So like just think about in Africa, there's about like $300 billion spent every year on higher education collectively on the whole continent. 80% of that money is going to be spent, $30 billion. 80% of that is spent on education which has nothing to do with what you've studied. So essentially $24 billion in higher education is spent every year on education that will eventually have absolutely zero consequences in your future career. That's a huge waste of money, right? So as I said, I love the idea of technology and how technology interventions can kind of democratize opportunities and kind of streamline things and remove biases and make everything objective. So we started from there. And then we said, okay, now that we've kind of helped the students figure out what's the right path for them, and now they need to go to universities. Now, how do they select the universities? So we said, okay, let's see how does it happen today. So how it happens today is that if you want to study in Africa, or any country in Africa, there are these government bodies where you say, I want to study this. And basically, you'll be matched basis your score and seat availability in whatever course is available. So thousands and millions of students end up in courses which have nothing to do with what they really wanted to study. There's a course for criminology.
Okay.
For some reason, a lot of students in Africa have studied criminology because like you applied for engineering, you didn't get engineering, so get into criminology.
So the government funds these students?
Yeah, this government, yeah. I mean, to a certain extent, yes. So you end up, selecting the wrong universities, the wrong courses. There is no transparent information. If you want to compare like 50 universities together, see which is the best university for me, there's nothing available there. And then, there is a percentage of students who leave Africa to study abroad. And how do they decide? So they decide by going to agents. So this industry is run by what we think are very financially incentivized business people who are essentially working for universities to send students to them, right? So their job is, how this agent ecosystem started was universities wanted students, and they didn't know how to get students from those markets where they don't physically operate in. So they appointed agents, which are typically like distributors. Their job was to go fetch students for them. So essentially the whole agent ecosystem was created to get students for universities. So I said, okay, if their job is to meet a quota of targets for the university, are they thinking for the student or are they thinking for the university? Because all my job is to make sure that I push the students into this university. So then agents started like this. And then these agents got like 15 university contracts, and their focus was to push students to universities. We said, okay, but who's thinking about a student? Who's thinking about what is the best interest of a student? What is the university that a student wants to go to or should be going to is not with the agent. But the agent's job is to push. Get targets, get numbers met. To make problem worse was the fact that there was no transparent system available to the students where they could be able to compare multiple universities in one place. They could see what is the value they're offering, what is the value they're offering, compare fees, look at scholarships and discounts. There was nothing available. So we said, okay, technology has a really powerful way of democratizing access to information. So we said, we're going to build an online platform. We're going to put every university there it is on our platform where students can come, do our assessment, figure out the right course for them to study, and then use our platform to say, for this course, tell me what are the best universities to go for, and our technology and our systems will kind of give the recommendations. So the idea was that we wanted to move the center of power from the agent and give it to the student. Yeah. And then, we extended the same service now to high school. So we work with a lot of high schools, in Africa. We work with about 200 high schools. So we said to the counselor, you don't need to worry about any agent, because agent, no one really wants to work with an agent. You work with an agent because you have no other option. So we said, here's this platform. Here's everything that you need to be able to make a decision. Today, Craydel has one of the most diverse portfolio of universities on the planet, not just in Africa. We today have direct contracts with over 600 universities in about 50 different study destinations. And one of the metrics that we track at Craydel, and we're really proud of it, is that the diversity of placements of students that we've done. So in year one, we place students in about 60 odd universities, 60 different universities in about 8 destinations. This year, we are placing students in over 190 different universities in 20 different study destinations, which means that students are getting exposure to universities and courses and destinations they would have never gotten exposure to, because like you see South India, everyone is going to US. North India is UK, Punjab is Canada, Australia. There is no logic for that. It's just herd mentality. So I think like technology has a real power of democratizing that kind of access to information, and students want to do what's right for them, just that they have no other access, and students are vulnerable, parents are vulnerable, everyone is vulnerable. It's a very high anxiety, high stake decision. So if someone says, brother, I'm telling you this is best for you, you just tend to believe them and do it for them. So I think, we've today kind of, we spent the first 2-3 years not really focusing on commercials or business. We've kind of built a very strong foundation today. We have a robust technology platform. We are launching our AI platform where our AI counselors will do process information across hundreds of universities and give students the right information. And then we have high school partnerships. Today we operate in about 6-7 odd countries, and then we have 10 odd offices. We've grown quite a lot. We've built strong university partnerships. By the end of next year, we'll have 1,000+ universities. And now we built the right foundation, the right tools, the right processes, and now we are trying to expand ourselves.
Wonderful. And I think the core 2 things that I stand out for me, and that attracted me to you also when I came. I think you established Craydel in 2022. I mean, that's when I was. I mean, 2022 is I think 2022 or 2020.
2023 is when
I came to Nairobi and worked with you for 3 months in that wonderful office of yours. I think that aim, single-minded focus on democratizing the access to different universities, options, and what is in the best interest of the student, and not being commoditized as another commodity.
I'll tell you something very interesting. I met a very large study abroad company, and so I was like, you're discussing how's business going and everything. You in the industry, you kind of share and discuss what's happening. Sir, इस साल हमने 1000 बच्चे पेल दिए हैं.
बताइए.
ये बोल रहे हैं 1000 बच्चे पेल दिए इस बार हमने.
क्या पेल?
ठीक है. तो पूरा का गेम यही है कि बच्चे को उठा के शिप करो और पैसे कमाओ. It really breaks my heart. We've kind of talked to parents. बेचारे पेरेंट्स सारी ज़िंदगी अपना सेविंग्स करके sometimes they're selling their jewelry, their assets to finance education. It is someone's entire future. And the way these agents and a lot of these companies that we talk to are treating students like commodities for making money, it's just a number on their table to their investors. कि इतने बच्चे भेजने, इतना पैसा कमाना है. And it really breaks my heart. So as you said, we have one simple principle: always do what's in the best interest of our student. So हमारी कंपनी में जो भी डिसीजंस लेनी होती है ना, उसका एक ही फिल्टर है. You take this decision if it's in the best interest of student.
Wonderful.
Otherwise, you don't
More
take that
power
decision.
to you. I mean, otherwise, we all know the repercussions. I mean, there are horror stories of, students being misled and they ending up in deep miseries. I mean, I remember You were mentioning Canada. I mean, a couple of years back there was a documentary on BBC or CBC,
Netflix
some
में थी,
Netflix में
Netflix में
कहीं
थी,
थी,
हाँ, आई थी,
where
yeah.
they said, every month there were 4 dead bodies of Indian students being sent back to India in Canada because they were misled by agents. And that has real life implications. I
Yeah.
mean, imagine this is not a commodity, these are real life, real students. And as you mentioned, these families are taking loans, selling their land, and I mean, somebody treating them like a commodity and misguiding them is
It is
absolutely
horrible.
it's a sin. It's a sin of the highest order, and that's why what you are trying to do and build in Africa is amazing. I mean, more power to you. And another myth about Africa, let me tell you, is that when we talk about Africa on the global stage, there is this myth that Africa, everybody wants scholarships. I mean, Africa में तो बच्चों के पास, it's an underdeveloped economy. I mean, nobody has the means. And I remember, when I was there, there are so many students who have all the means and who
Yeah,
can
yeah.
go anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
Why don't you talk about that? I mean, that myth that Africa does not have paying students or they cannot afford the tuition fee in the
I think, look,
top universities.
everyone, like even if it is our own kids, if we could get a good scholarship for them, we would all want a scholarship.
Yes.
I think that desire to subsidize fees or the desire to kind of get a
Absolutely.
scholarship is a universal desire. I mean, we bargain for every 1 kg of tomato that we buy from the
Bilkul.
market. To get a good deal is a universal phenomenon. So I'm not going to say that would they not want a scholarship. Of course, they would want a scholarship. But having said that, every year in Africa today, just for studying abroad, okay, $3 billion of money is being spent today, and that is growing every single year. So students are paying money. We have students who are going to universities where they're paying even as much as $70,000 per year.
They can't even
And
imagine
they,
that.
and,
I
they,
mean, I tell
and, they,
them
and they're
this.
coming from public schools, and
Yes,
they're
so
spending all that money.
So my colleagues in the West will tell me, I mean, they're all looking for full financial aid. I mean, they don't have money even to fund their travel to our university.
Yeah, it's just perceptions. जब मैं अफ्रीका जब पहली बार जा रहा था तो we had this farewell party and then someone said, अरे क्या हो गया बेटा, इंडिया में जॉब नहीं मिला क्या, अफ्रीका जाना पड़ रहा
बिल्कुल सही
है.
बात
फिर किसी ने ये बोला कि अरे कोई बात नहीं बेटा, कई बार जिंदगी में कॉम्प्रोमाइज करना पड़ता है. तो कहते हैं कि मतलब तो बहुत सारे रहोगे कहाँ पे, वहाँ पे तो क्राइम बहुत है, ये सब वो सब है. I mean, you've been to enough countries. I mean, Nairobi is as metropolitan as it gets. And people are influential, they're doing well, they're succeeding, and they're like, okay, fine, you keep thinking about us like this.
Yes.
We are doing what we're doing for us. And
Absolutely. And I think those myths and those stereotypes are something that also, is very disappointing for me, because Africa has so much potential. And someone like you who is sitting there and who is doing business for the last decade and more is the person I want your voice to go to places, because a lot of times, I mean, again, maybe I'm sticking out my neck, but बहुत सारे, a lot of those people that have never touched or landed in any country in Africa, or have landed for a couple of days in a 5-star hotel, start talking about Africa like I know everything about all the 54 countries in Africa. I mean, that's not the fact. I really respect you. You've been there every day, you're building, you're networking. I think now you have
last 1.5 months,
offices.
Last 1.5 months, I have traveled between Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Uganda. I have not even stepped my foot in my own house. I've just been like one suitcase and traveling, and 2 times I've been to India in the last 1.5 months. I mean, incredible things are happening. The pace of development is just fantastic. Kids are ambitious, they're hungry, they're doing well. I know students personally who have gotten full scholarships in Princeton, in MIT. Harvard has a student recruitment arm, called Harvard Club, based in Kenya.
Okay.
UN is, by the way, shifting the headquarters from New York to Nairobi now.
Okay.
They just announced it,
Okay.
Something must be right.
Yeah, absolutely. That is news. And I think you also recently opened an office in Burundi.
Yeah, Burundi is known to be the poorest country in the world, and we have like 15 odd students who are going to Spain from there, paying very high fees.
Spain, okay.
Yeah.
And paying the full fee.
Paying the full fees, no scholarships.
Nobody can imagine that in Burundi.
Yeah. There is just enough opportunity, and I think we are fine. If no one sees an opportunity, we are very happy.
And you're doing a very fine job of it.
But we're seeing that a lot of study abroad companies from India are now coming to Africa. Yeah, that they're trying to. But what they're doing is they're working with sub-agents there, which we think is a fundamentally flawed model. They are perpetuating, using investor money, they're perpetuating a flawed ecosystem. They're making us, today anyone can, you want to become an agent, he wants to become, anyone can become an agent today. You can just sign up for one of these aggregators and become an agent today.
Yeah,
You don't need to
absolutely.
have any knowledge, anything, and you can become an agent.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there, I think it's really sad that, study abroad companies have raised so much funding and all they're doing is just aggregating agents, really.
And what about, absolutely. That's a challenge, and because again, they are looking from next quarter perspective.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's
treating
all
students
numbers,
as a
numbers,
commodity.
numbers.
I will get 5 students extra, maybe I'll expand to Africa.
Yeah, yeah,
They are
yeah.
not there in Africa to build for Africa.
Yeah, they're not building for
They are
Africa. They're
looking
just
for
taking students from there
taking
and
students
shipping
from
them.
them
Yeah.
and getting the commissions and
Yes,
getting the
yes,
money
yes.
going, and then
Yes,
that
yes,
is
yes.
between the
Yes.
student and the university.
Yeah,
They don't bother.
yeah.
So, but that's not a long-term game. The
By the
long-term
way, they don't even know the student is, right?
yeah, absolutely. I don't know, no clue. They
Yeah.
only know that
Yeah.
okay, there is XYZ. There's this number of students.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
push
it.
them to this university,
Yep.
and then that's my job. Collect
Yeah,
my commission.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
That's a so that model where you don't know the student, where you do not have the best interest of the student in your heart, is absolutely a no-no in education, and we both agree on this term. And you're trying to break that, and more power to you. Uh, so what's next for Craydel? I know you are expanding, and we were just discussing that there are a lot of good things happening. You have been under the radar, building it.
Yeah.
And, so what is happening with Craydel? What are your plans like?
Yeah. So you're right. I think we kind of stayed under the radar and we kind of been very quiet. And the idea was to build really strong foundations where today I can come on a podcast like this and strongly claim that we are open to be challenged to say, show us a platform which is more learner centric than we have built today. So done a lot of hard work in there. I think India is always going to be my home. I've never left my Indian passport. I never intend to leave my Indian passport, and I keep coming to India at least 4 to 5 times in a year. I think like two interesting opportunities from an India perspective. We kind of looking forward to working with a select few Indian universities, and Masters Union being one of them.
Absolutely.
To kind of, because I truly believe Masters Union is a great proposition. When I came to Intersect, I heard
Yeah, you were
Pratham
there.
and like I really like kind of thinking of kind of hands-on learning. So we want to kind of bring these opportunities from India to our students in Africa from India. I would love to see more students selecting India as their study destination, and I really think it is a great study destination. But you have to be very selective on the universities you work with, because I do get a lot of proposals from a lot of Indian universities that I know are not in the best interest of our students, so we say no to all of them. So we are very selective with the universities we work with. Masters Union is one university, of course, we are very keen to work with. So it is kind of to find a couple of kind of strong key partnerships in India to kind of help our students get exposure to these universities here in India, and hopefully for them to travel to India. I'm also planning to bring a few of our high school partnerships. We have with the school counselors. We want to bring them to India so they also get to understand the
Wonderful.
Indian value system. Hopefully, we can make something work with you guys. And then hopefully, yeah, my dream is to have Craydel in India at some
Wow,
point.
wonderful.
So that's a big hope. I think right now we are very focused on Africa. I think there is a massive opportunity in Africa that we haven't exploited. I mean, every day I get up, I tell my wife that there are millions of students today that are going to be misguided today because we could not reach them. And I stay with that pain and I stay with that guilt. So I am extremely ambitious to make sure that we are able to impact as many students as possible and as quickly as possible. So Africa, there is a lot of unfinished business, but I think we do see an opportunity where we can start building something in India as well. Our platform is global. We have all the university contracts. We have a lot of friends like you who we know we can count on for support as we launch in India. So yeah, at some point I think we want to come to India.
Wonderful. More power to you, and we are always here for you to help you.
No.
Help good people like you. You mentioned Masters Union, and you have been a part of Intersect, and you mentioned that you really love what we are trying to do here, and we are big on business, learn by doing.
Yeah.
And we have such bright students here in our undergraduate program, the postgraduate program. And all of them are full of ideas, and they are young entrepreneurs.
I think the youngest participant in Shark Tank India's history was from Masters Union.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's my student.
Yeah.
So what will be your advice? to these young entrepreneurs? What is it? I'm mentioning your LinkedIn post recently. You were at Mount Kilimanjaro. You were trying to,
Mount Kenya. Yeah.
Mount Kenya. Sorry, I read that post a couple of days back, and where you mentioned.
Oh, that was at Mount Kigali. Yeah. So I climb a lot of mountains. So
Lot
that
of
the
mountains.
latest
I
one
know
was
you're a
Mount
nature
Kigali.
person,
Yeah.
and you mentioned that entrepreneurship and you
About failures
in life, and then moving on. It's not always in front of the
Yeah.
cameras you have to build. There are a lot of lows that you have to tackle as an entrepreneur, something like that.
Yeah.
But in your own experience that we have discussed till now, your own life journey is full of ups and downs, and you have always come out of failure stronger, and you have always been resilient. Any couple of things that you want to share from your
Yeah,
own
I
experience
think
of over so many years?
Yeah, I think the world has kind of large complex problems to be solved and not many people thinking about solving those problems. And there is, of course, there's a lot of NGO money going in solving kind of big kind of global problems. But I don't really prefer the NGO model because you're always at the mercy of someone to kind of. So I like the idea of entrepreneurship in terms of building a self-sustaining business that can solve those problems. So when I do a lot of career talks with students myself because that's what I love doing the most. At the end of the day, I'm a teacher from my heart. I tell students only one thing: pick one problem you want to solve in this world and dedicate your entire life trying to solve that problem. That's it. I think if you have enough people in this world trying to solve complex problems, you will find a way to become successful commercially as well. You will make money along the way. So that's number one. Like number one, start with like what is the problem that you want to solve, like relates to what is the meaning of your life. So when you were to pass away, what is your obituary going to read? So start from there. Number two is so the value and the mission is the most fundamental thing. Number two is you need to get the courage because even when I started Craydel, I told my co-founders that every 6 months we will reach a point for the first 5 years where we will curse ourselves as to why did we leave our jobs to start this company, because the journey to entrepreneurship is marked with failures and hardships and a lot of emotional trauma, not just for you but also for your family members because they're all in this journey with you, right? So there will be a time, and there has been times in our lives when we have no money to pay the next month's salary. And then you find yourself questioning yourself, you want to give up. So you just need to develop tremendous levels of courage and perseverance so like we said, we have to survive that 1 month where we feel like nothing is working and we want to give up. You just survive that, and then I think things start opening up. You see a large number of startups fail, a lot of companies fail because when you're pushed against the wall and nothing is working, you're just like, I don't want to take this pain anymore. So your threshold for pain has to be massive. I think Elon Musk said it very nicely. He said, starting a company is like chewing glass every day. So it's really, really hard. So you have to have the courage. And I think if you have the mission, then the courage comes. Because if you're really trying to solve something very big and the impact is so good, it gives you the kind of strength to carry on. And the third thing, I talk about discipline. I mean, growing up in kind of Indian families, like the one thing that you always are very good at being disciplined. Like, you're toughened up from the childhood.
Absolutely.
So discipline is the art of doing things that you don't love every single day. Doing things that you love every day doesn't require discipline. You will do it anyways. But the things that you don't like, getting up 4 o'clock in the morning and going for a run, or on a Sunday packing your bags to climb a tough mountain when you could have been cuddled inside your blanket and having a cup of tea with your family. But leaving all of that to go on a mountain of snow and then climbing it is hard. So the discipline is a final thing, I would say. So I would say find a problem you want to solve in the world and you want to dedicate your life solving for. Number two is to build the courage to solve that problem because it is not going to be easy. There's a reason why it's a complex problem. There's a reason why it has not been solved, why it is hard. And the third is then have the discipline of doing it over and over again till the time you get it right.
Absolutely. I think I could not have put it better. Such a nice and wise piece of advice. Thank you, Manish. Finally, you touched upon family. And you have, mentioned family on a couple of occasions. Family is a integral part of your entrepreneurship journey.
Yeah. Could have not done it without them.
Yes. So, your final thoughts on in this very question. The role your family has had in, what you are today and what you are building. Their support, What has that been like?
Yeah, I think like the one thing that I've always got was kind of like unconditional love. Unconditional love, is hard, is really, really hard because consciously or subconsciously, every time you give love, you expect something in return. So I've gotten a lot of unconditional love in my life, so I'm very blessed with that. And unconditional love in my case and in my journey was that we love you very much. We support who you want to become and what you want to become and things you want to solve for. And that process will lead to us as your family members to suffer. Like for example, when I quit my job, I had to change my kids' school. I could not afford the school they were going to. We had to make a lot of lifestyle changes and adjustments in our life. We couldn't afford most of the things that we were able to afford. And that love and that support was instrumental, because if my family had said sorry, we didn't sign up for this, and they had, without that support, I would have not. So I think that kind of unconditional, unwavering support and being my kind of cheerleaders in this journey has been fantastic. Without that, I think it would have never been possible. Like as I said, when I quit Delhi School of Economics, I mean, of course my parents were upset, but they were not like, go back, you're not coming home. It's like, okay, if that's what your decision is, take the time to figure out what you want out of your life. I think having that, and I think if you're a parent listening to this, sometimes it may not add up in your head. Sometimes you'll think that your child is stupid. Let them make the mistakes. Let them fail. Let them find their own feet. Don't push them in what you think is what's best for them.
Absolutely, Hare Krishna. That's a wonderful piece of advice. Thank you so much, Manish. It was an honor. It is a lovely knowing you. I mean, we share many years journey together. I mean, and I hope that we continue building on this bond and we continue collaborating on a personal and professional level. I mean, you have tremendous energy, and I learn and get inspired after meeting you every time that we speak or we exchange messages on WhatsApp. It is always like we share a strong bond, and that is where I would like us to continue doing that in the years to come. And more power to you, more love to you, your family, all the team at Craydel. I mean, your co-founders. I mean. Hello, Shane. Shane has been one person that also I loved working with when I was in your office. I know, more power. And we hope that at Masters Union also, we continue hosting you and collaborating with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ankur.